All right, we're live. Today I'm doing a sort of radio-style podcast interview with the co-founder of Sweetleaf, Carol. Hello, Carol.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Please, in comments on Facebook, please say where you're tuning in from. If you have any questions about sugar, about health, about sugar substitutes, and specifically about stevia, we're going to be talking a lot about today. So, Carol, first of all, for those who maybe like myself aren't very smart in terms of health issues, why is sugar a problem, or is it?
Well, yes, just in the last few years, there has come a plethora of medical and scientific research to show us what actually was known in a beginning way back in the 60s. There was an interesting Journal of the American Medical Association lead article about 6 or 7 months ago now that showed that the medical community was taught to believe, as it were, by the sugar lobbies that sugar was not a problem for the cardiovascular system, but fats were. Now, as it turns out, now new research has shown that indeed, we do have to watch the fats we intake, but we want to have good fats like avocado and olive oil and some others. And we do have to watch trans fats, most assuredly. Mm-hmm. But it isn't the fats that make the difference in cardiovascular disease by themselves. It actually is the amount of excess
Hey, so we're
in the heart.
Sorry, the video is freezing a little bit. It might just be good if you can close your email or any programs on the computer other than Skype, and just make sure nothing else. Maybe other people's phones are off the Wi-Fi and all that. But we're hearing you well overall, so things are good. So you're saying heart health. Heart health is so the just to recap briefly, the sugar lobby spent millions and millions of dollars sort of suppressing the notion that the scientific fact that sugar could be problematic for health.
Yes, absolutely, for cardiovascular health. It actually has now been demonstrated to be a true, that is excess sugars, a true cardiovascular risk. Now, we're not talking about the sugars that are naturally occurring in vegetables, fruits, and unsweetened milk and dairy. We're talking about the added sugars that are put in to make things taste sweeter and more delicious.
So a question, Carol. A question, Carol, on that. A question on that, if I may.
Yeah.
So if you eat an orange, why is that not a problem? Because it has lots of sugar, but it also has fiber and other stuff, right?
That's correct. And that the fiber that you mentioned and other kinds of elements of the fruit itself work together to make it not a problem for the human body. But added sugars definitely are a problem. And it isn't just disease. Just within the last month, there's been research to show that it impacts the brain negatively. Impacts memory. That the liver is impacted by excess sugar, such that 31% of American adults actually have a non-alcoholic liver disease, which can lead to cirrhosis and um, and death, actually, in many people, just as if they ingest too much alcohol. That sugar, the body just isn't made for sugars. And it isn't just granulated sugar that we normally think of. It's the wide variety of sugars, from agave nectar to maple syrup to molasses and brown sugar and so forth. Any kind of sugars acts in the body in the same way.
And Carol, on that, is there a difference in, that's really interesting, is there a difference in the kind of health between maple syrup or quality local honey and like bleached white, whatever that granulated white sugar is?
There are certainly differences in those particular sugars. I mean, honey certainly has redeeming qualities in terms of helping with allergies and such.
Right.
But in the body, all sugars impact our systems in the same way. And so it's a matter of the added sugar to our diet that's the problem. And not just for adults. The American Heart Association commissioned research this last spring and summer, and came out in last August, with a scientific statement, which they only do like every several years or so. And it was to show, the headline is something about how excess sugars do indeed pose a cardiovascular risk to children. It isn't just about calories or about cavities, although those things matter, but it is about cardiovascular risk as well. And it starts young, and children are consuming more and more sugars today than ever before.
So and just yet another dumb question. So cardiovascular is just a fancy word for heart health, right?
It's for heart and the vessels that either bring blood back to the heart or take the blood out of the heart to the various organs. It attacks the vessels as well as the heart itself. Okay,
thank you. Yeah, I want to make sure everyone kind of understands this, including bachelor idiots like myself, because it's something we kind of take for granted. We think of sugar as sweet and kind of nice, and it's in cake, and you can, like this New York Times article about going sugar-free for a month said, if presented with the notion of eating 3 steaks right in a row versus eating 3 pieces of cake, eating 3 pieces of cake doesn't seem like a big deal. Like everyone could do that once in a while. And yet the health impacts are very similar in their intensity. I mean, obviously they have very different health impacts, but.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Sugar is now seen amongst the cardiology community to have an equal risk for cardiovascular disease as smoking. Wow. That's extreme.
Wow.
And the first thing cardiologists will tell any patient is, if you're smoking, stop.
Right.
And, and that's a difficult thing to do for many people, but it's even more difficult sometimes to reduce and certainly eliminate sugars in the diet.
So question, so we have a lot of elephant reader questions. One of them was saying, the problem isn't sugar, the problem is ourselves. We just need to be moderate and not eat so much added sugar. Is there any kind of healthy level of added sugar consumption?
Well, various organizations have come out with different recommendations. The World Health Organization says that one should eat less than 5% of one's total calories in sugars. Many cardiologists say, hey, we'd be better off to use no sugar, but